Okay, I believe I'm live. Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here with me today for another Monday Healing Step session inside the Bridge to Healing community. Now, if we haven't met, I'm Janine Naus, your grief and trauma relief specialist, and I work with trauma survivors, people just like you who are ready to reconnect with themselves, release old patterns, and find peace again. If you're catching the replay, go ahead and type pound replay in the comments. And if you're joining me live, say hello and type pound live. I'd love to hear where you're joining me from. So today's topic speaks to a very real, very exhausting experience that many trauma survivors live with every single day: hypervigilance. That constant scanning, that feeling like something bad might happen at any moment, that inner tension that never seems to let go. And it can be incredibly hard to explain, and often those around you don't see it. But today, we're going to talk about why this happens and how it shows up in your life, and what gentle steps you can take to feel safer in your body again. So let's start with why this hyper alert state exists in the first place. So we're going to take a moment to acknowledge something important. Your body hasn't failed you. In fact, it's been doing exactly what it was trained to do: protect you. Hypervigilance isn't a personality flaw. It's not anxiety that came out of nowhere. It's a powerful survival mechanism rooted in your nervous system's drive to keep you alive. And if you grew up in an unpredictable or unsafe environment, maybe emotionally, physically, or psychologically, your system learned to stay on guard. And you may have learned to read the room the moment you walked into it, to sense tension before anyone raised their voice, to brace yourself to shrink, or to fix things before they even escalated. You became a master of anticipation. You tuned into others' needs or moods, sometimes so sharply that you forgot to notice your own. And here's what's essential to understand. At the time, those responses weren't just helpful, they were life-preserving. And this was your nervous system's way of ensuring you made it through the day with the least harm possible. It was your brilliance at work, your body's wisdom choosing survival above all else. But here's the hard part. Once those patterns are set, your body doesn't automatically know when the danger is gone. So even in moments of calm, you may still feel like something's wrong. You might notice you're easily startled, feeling exhausted by social situations, or find it difficult to relax, even when nothing is wrong. And that's because your system is still scanning, still protecting, still working overtime. So have you ever felt like you couldn't relax your guard, even in calm moments? What does it feel like in your body? Maybe your shoulders tighten or your stomach knots. Maybe you feel like you always need to be ready for something. So take a moment. You're welcome to share in the comments using a word or a phrase that describes that sensation, or simply notice it quietly within yourself. You are not alone in this. And now that this awareness is opening, let's look at what happens when those suppressed emotions stay hidden for too long, and how they begin to show up in ways we don't always expect. Living in a constant state of hyper alertness is like carrying an invisible weight every day. It's exhausting, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. And over time, it impacts nearly every part of your life. And you may notice that your sleep is shallow or interrupted, like your body doesn't trust that it's okay to rest. You might struggle with concentration or feel anxious or edgy for no apparent reason. Even small things like a sudden noise or a change in plans or someone's tone can send your nervous system into overdrive. For me, it was often if somebody just walked up behind me, I would be completely startled. See, this can also affect your relationships. When you're always on edge, It's hard to let people in. It's hard to stay present. And you might find yourself withdrawing to avoid getting overwhelmed or people pleasing in an attempt to prevent conflict. Sometimes you may even feel numb, disconnected, like you're going through the motions of life, but not fully experiencing it. And that's because true presence requires a sense of safety. And when your system is constantly bracing for danger, there's no space for ease. This chronic hypervigilance also affects your emotions. You may cry more easily or not at all, and you may feel easily irritated or completely flat. It can feel like your emotions are either too much or nowhere to be found. And the saddest part, many survivors blame themselves for this. And they think they're too sensitive, too reactive, or too cold. But none of this is your fault. It's a survival pattern, a deeply ingrained one that helped you once, but now keeps you from fully living. And that's why understanding the impact is important. It brings clarity and it helps you see the pattern, not as a flaw, but as a response that made sense then, but is ready to be transformed now. So in this next section here, I'm going to go ahead and share a personal story about how I began to notice these patterns in myself and what helped me begin to shift. And you'll see that this journey isn't about blaming the past, it's about reclaiming your present. So when I first began to recognize my own hypervigilance, I didn't have language for it. I just knew I felt tired all the time, like I was constantly bracing for something bad to happen, even when things were fine. And I'd catch myself scanning the room, worrying about people's reactions, apologizing for things that weren't my fault, and no matter how safe the environment was, my body was still on high alert. And it wasn't until I started doing trauma-informed work that I realized this wasn't just who I was, it, it was what had happened to me. And with that awareness came a small but powerful shift. I started to notice the moments when I tensed up, the situations that triggered my alertness, and rather than trying to force myself to calm down, I began to get curious. I began to ask, what does my body need right now to feel a little safer? Sometimes it was a deep breath. Sometimes it was leaving a room. Sometimes it was placing a hand over my heart and saying, "You're okay right now." These moments didn't fix everything overnight, but they created space between the trigger and the reaction, space where I could choose something different. And that's what I want to offer you today, the possibility of a pause, a breath, a choice. Because healing doesn't mean never being triggered. It means knowing how to meet yourself in those moments with care instead of criticism. In just a moment, I'll share a simple practice you can use to begin creating this space in your own life. It's a gentle strategy, and I call it the grounding glance. So let's take a moment to explore a gentle strategy that supports your nervous system in real time, and it's the grounding glance. And this is especially helpful when you feel your body moving into hyper alert mode and when your heart races, your breath shortens, or you suddenly feel unsafe without knowing why. Here's how it works. When you feel that familiar tension rise, pause where you are just for a moment, and then take a slow breath in through your nose and a longer breath out through your mouth. And then let your eyes move slowly around the space you're in. Look for 5 things that feel neutral or comforting, not overwhelming, not emotionally charged, just simple, safe, and here. And it could be a soft pillow, a plant, the light coming through the window, the texture of a blanket, a photo you love. And as you notice each one, name it softly to yourself. Soft pillow, green plant, light, blanket, picture. And then with a hand on your heart or on your belly, say quietly, right now, I'm here. Right now, I'm safe. And this practice helps your body orient to what is instead of what it fears might happen, and lets your brain receive a new message, one that says, you're not in the past, you're in this moment now. It may seem simple, but when practiced regularly, it can interrupt the spiral of fear and help you reconnect with the present and with yourself. You deserve to feel moments of ease again, not because the past didn't happen, but because your body deserves to know it's not happening now. Let's deepen that connection with a journaling practice. I invite you to explore this reflection on your own, maybe later today or sometime this week when you have a few quiet minutes. And here's your prompt. When I feel most alert or on guard, what does my body do? And what might my body need in those moments instead? So let me say that again in case you want to write it down. When I feel most alert or on guard, what does my body do? And what might my body need in those moments instead? You don't need to have all the answers. This isn't about fixing, it's about noticing. Even becoming aware of what your body is asking for is a powerful part of your healing. And when you bring curiosity instead of judgment, you open the door to safety, to peace, to possibility. And if this conversation spoke to you today, if you felt seen or supported or just want someone to walk this path with you, I invite you to connect with me for a free 30-minute healing clarity session. And this is a private, heart-centered space where we can talk about one area of your life where you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or unclear. And you'll leave with compassionate support and one personalized tool to help you move forward. So you can schedule your free session using the link in the comments below. You're not broken, you're healing. You're not too much, you're learning how to breathe again. And you are never, ever alone. Sending you my best. Until next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.